So I'm going to show you how to create a Java Spring Boot application and then containerize it in Docker. You're going to need a couple of things to follow along with this if you haven't got them already. You're going to need an IDE to develop Java. Now I'm using Eclipse. If you go to eclipse.org and go to download, because we want to develop web applications, go on download packages and get the Eclipse IDE for Enterprise Java for your operating system. You're also going to need Docker. So if you go to docker.com, click on Getting Started and download the Docker desktop. When it's up and running, you should see the Docker image in your status bar. So now in Eclipse, I'm going to create a new Spring Starter project. I'm going to call it Docker App. I'm going to make sure the type's a Maven project and it's building to jar. And I'm just going to fill these things in. So the group, net.davekirkwood, that's just my website back to front. The artifact, Docker App, version 1. Give it a description here. So I'm just calling it Docker Test App. And this is the Java package. On the next screen, I'm just going to add the Spring Web dependency because I'm just making a simple Spring Web application here. And here's our application here. Here's the main class, Docker application. I'm just going to add a controller. So I'm just going to say new class. I'm going to put it in a controller package. I'm just going to call it simple controller. I'm going to annotate that with REST controller. That's the Spring annotation. And then I'm going to say get mapping. I'm going to map this method that I'm going to write to just the root folder. And the method, public string, I'm just going to call it hello world, is just going to return the string hello world from Docker. Control Shift and O in Eclipse to fix the imports. And that's my Spring application. So now I'm going to right click on the application file, run as Spring Boot application. And that's started up there. Next I'm going to open a browser and I'm going to go to localhost 8080, which is the default port for Spring Boot. And there we have hello world from Docker. So that's working. Now I'm going to Dockerize that. So to build it, I'm back in Eclipse. I'm going to right click on pom.xml and I'm going to run as Maven install. I'm just going to stop it there first. Run as Maven install. It's going to run through the tests just to make sure that it runs, and we have build success. So now if I look in my target folder, I have docker app1.jar. And next I need to decide on a Docker image to base my image on. So I go to Docker Hub and I need to find a Java image. And now if you look at the OpenJDK images, they're deprecated. So we need to use an alternative, and this is a currently supported one, Eclipse Temurin. So I'm going to use that image, so I'm just going to copy the name of it there. And now I'm going to go back to Eclipse and create my Docker file. I need to call Docker file exactly like that, with capital D and small f for file, and we're going to use the Eclipse Temurin image. So I'm going to say from Eclipse Temurin, we'll say expose port 8080, so that's the default Spring Boot port. And now I'm going to add from in this folder in target / docker app1.jar. Call that docker app1.jar in the container, and the entry point for our container, we want to run Java. with the parameter jar, and then docker app1.jar. So that's our Docker file. I'm going to save that. And now we're going to build the Docker image. So I'm going to open a console. I'm going to cd into my folder where my Docker file is. So there's my Docker file. And now I'm going to build the image. Docker build. And give it a tag. I'll just call it docker1.jar, and the folder where the Docker file is this folder. So then we build that. Now this is going to go quite quickly for me because I've already built with the Eclipse Tamarin image, but it may take a few minutes on yours. But here we've got build finished, so we've built the image. Now we check the images installed, so I do docker images to list the images, and we have it installed there. Now I'm going to run the image, so docker run, and run it in detached mode, because if not I can't use the terminal while it's running. I'm going to give it a name, docker app, otherwise we get a sort of too random word name. There needs to be a hyphen in there, and we're going to say port on the local machine, port 8081 is going to map to port 8080 in the container, and then I just need to give it the image name, docker app1, and there we have a container ID. So now I can check that it's running by doing docker ps. We can say there up 8 seconds, and I can check its log by writing docker logs and the name we gave it, and then we can see that the standard Spring log there. Now I'm going to open up a new browser, and I'm going to navigate to localhost 8081, and there's hello world Docker coming from the Docker container. So that's how to containerize a simple Spring Boot application. Okay, so I'm going to be making some more videos shortly about Docker and about web application development. So if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.